The aroma of freshly baked bread wafted through the crowded streets of Brooklyn. As dawn broke over the city skyline, a determined woman named Sarah unlocked the doors to her tiny bakery. Little did she know that her modest dream was about to rise and transform an entire neighborhood. Before we dive into Sarah's inspiring journey, make sure to subscribe to our channel and hit that notification bell. You won't want to miss our weekly stories of everyday heroes making a difference in their communities. Our story begins in the heart of Brooklyn, where the streets pulse with the rhythm of countless lives intertwined. It was here, amid the bustling avenues and weathered brownstones, that Sarah Thompson found herself at a crossroads. A single mother of 2 young children, Sarah had always dreamed of owning her own bakery. But dreams, as we know, often take a back seat to the harsh realities of life. Sarah's days were a blur of minimum wage jobs, rushing between a diner and a convenience store, scraping together every penny to keep a roof over her family's head. Her children, Emma and Liam, were bright stars in her otherwise exhausting world. Each night, as she tucked them into bed, Sarah would whisper promises of a better tomorrow, all the while wondering how she could possibly make those promises come true. It was on a particularly grueling day, as Sarah wiped down sticky diner tables and ignored the ache in her feet, that fate decided to intervene. An elderly customer, a kind-faced woman named Mrs. Abernathy, struck up a conversation. "You look like you could use a slice of happiness, dear," she said, sliding a piece of paper across the table. "My late husband left me this little storefront. I've been holding on to it, waiting for the right person to bring it back to life. Something tells me that person might be you." Sarah's heart raced as she unfolded the paper. It was a deed to a small, run-down shop, just a few blocks from her apartment. Mrs. Abernathy explained that she'd rent it to Sarah for next to nothing, giving her a chance to start the bakery she'd always dreamed of. It seemed too good to be true, but as Sarah looked into Mrs. Abernathy's eyes, she saw nothing but sincerity and hope. That night, after her shift ended, Sarah stood in front of the dilapidated storefront. The windows were grimy, the paint peeling, but Sarah saw beyond the current state. In her mind's eye, she envisioned cheerful yellow walls, the sparkle of clean glass, and the irresistible scent of fresh pastries drawing people in from the street. With trembling hands, Sarah signed the rental agreement the very next day. She had no savings, no business plan, and frankly, no idea how she was going to make this work. But she had something far more powerful: determination, and a community that was about to rally behind her in ways she could never have imagined. Word spread quickly through the neighborhood about Sarah's plan to open a bakery. It wasn't long before a steady stream of visitors began to appear at the shop's door. There was Mr. Guzman, a retired carpenter who offered to help with repairs. Mrs. Chen from the local grocery brought cleaning supplies and enlisted her teenage sons to help scrub the place from top to bottom. Even Sarah's children pitched in, with Emma designing colorful signs and Liam proving to be surprisingly adept at organizing the small storage room. As the days turned into weeks, the transformation of the little shop became a symbol of hope for the entire block. People who had never spoken to each other before found themselves working side by side, sharing stories and laughter as they painted walls and hung shelves. Sarah's dream was becoming a collective mission, a chance for a neighborhood that had seen better days to prove that together they could create something beautiful. But challenges loomed on the horizon. As opening day approached, Sarah faced the daunting task of securing ingredients and equipment with almost no capital. It was Emma who came up with the idea of a community fundraiser. "We could have a block party, Mom," she exclaimed, her eyes shining with excitement. "Everyone could bring something to sell, and we could use the money to buy what you need for the bakery." The idea took off like wildfire. On a warm Saturday afternoon, the street in front of Sarah's shop transformed into a bustling marketplace. There were homemade crafts, secondhand treasures, and of course, plenty of food. Sarah contributed trays of cookies baked in her tiny apartment kitchen, which sold out within the first hour. As the sun began to set, Sarah stood in awe of what her community had accomplished. They had raised enough money to purchase a used oven, a refrigerator, and the first round of ingredients. But more than that, they had given Sarah the most precious gift of all: belief in herself and her dream. The night before the grand opening, Sarah barely slept. She tossed and turned, her mind racing with a mixture of excitement and fear. What if no one came? What if her recipes weren't good enough? As the first light of dawn crept through her window, Sarah rose, determination setting her jaw. She had come too far to turn back now. With Emma and Liam in tow, Sarah arrived at the bakery well before sunrise. As she tied on her apron and began to mix the first batch of dough, a sense of calm washed over her. This was where she belonged. The rhythmic kneading, the precise measurements, the aromatic spices, it all felt like coming home. As the morning wore on and the first batches of bread and pastries emerged golden and fragrant from the oven, a small crowd began to gather outside. Sarah's heart swelled as she recognized the faces pressed against the glass, the very same neighbors who had helped bring her dream to life. At precisely 7 a.m., Sarah flipped the sign on the door to open. The little bell above the entrance chimed, and in walked Mrs. Abernathy, beaming with pride. "I'll take one of everything," she declared, her eyes twinkling. From that moment on, it was as if a floodgate had opened. Customers streamed in steadily, drawn by the irresistible scent of fresh-baked goods and the warmth of Sarah's smile. By mid-morning, the shelves were nearly bare, and Sarah was already planning how to increase production for the next day. As word spread about the new bakery, Sarah's sweet spot became more than just a place to buy bread and pastries. It became a gathering place, a hub where neighbors connected and strangers became friends. Sarah instituted a pay-it-forward board, where customers could pre-purchase items for those who might not be able to afford them. The idea caught on quickly, and soon the board was filled with colorful sticky notes, each representing an act of kindness. But Sarah's impact on the community went far beyond free pastries. She began to offer baking classes on weekends, teaching both children and adults the joy of creating something delicious with their own hands. For many of the neighborhood kids, it was their first experience feeling the pride of accomplishment, of turning raw ingredients into something beautiful and shareable. As the months passed, Sarah's bakery became a beacon of hope and transformation. The once neglected street began to show signs of renewal. Other empty storefronts were rented out, bringing new businesses and vitality to the area. Crime rates dropped as more people spent time outdoors, enjoying the community that was blossoming around them. Sarah's personal life flourished as well. No longer stretched thin by multiple jobs, she was able to spend quality time with Emma and Liam. They would often do homework at a corner table in the bakery, surrounded by the comforting bustle of their extended family of regulars. 1 year after opening day, Sarah stood in front of her bakery, marveling at how far she had come. The worn-out, desperate woman she had been seemed like a distant memory. In her place stood a confident entrepreneur, a pillar of her community, and most importantly, a mother who had shown her children the power of perseverance and dreams. As she prepared to cut the ribbon for the bakery's one-year anniversary celebration, Sarah looked out at the crowd gathered in the street. There was Mrs. Abernathy, who had given her the chance of a lifetime, Mr. Guzman and Mrs. Chen, whose early support had meant everything, and countless others whose lives had become intertwined with hers through this little bakery. With tears in her eyes, Sarah raised her voice to address the crowd. "A year ago, I stood in front of a rundown storefront with nothing but a dream and a whole lot of fear," she began. "Today, I stand before you all with a heart full of gratitude. This bakery isn't just mine, it belongs to all of us. It's a testament to what can happen when a community comes together, when we choose to believe in each other and in the power of small acts of kindness." The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. As Sarah cut the ribbon, she felt a tugging on her apron. She looked down to see Emma and Liam, their faces shining with pride. "We did it, Mom," Emma said softly. "We really did it." Sarah knelt down and gathered her children in a tight embrace. "Yes, my loves," she whispered. "We did, and this is just the beginning." As the anniversary celebration continued late into the evening, with music, laughter, and of course, plenty of baked goods, Sarah took a moment to herself. She stepped back into the quiet of her little kitchen, running her hand lovingly over the worn countertop. The air was still warm from the day's baking, carrying the mingled scents of cinnamon, vanilla, and possibilities. Sarah closed her eyes and took a deep breath, filled with a profound sense of gratitude and purpose. Her little bakery had indeed become a beacon of hope, not just for her family, but for an entire community. And with each loaf of bread, each shared smile, each small kindness, that light grew stronger, reaching further, touching more lives. In that moment, Sarah realized that success wasn't measured in dollars or even in the number of customers served. True success was in the connections forged, the spirits lifted, and the ripple effect of compassion that spread far beyond the walls of her bakery. She had set out to build a business, but in the process, she had helped rebuild the heart of her neighborhood. As she rejoined the celebration outside, Sarah's heart swelled with hope for the future. She didn't know exactly what challenges or triumphs lay ahead, but she knew one thing for certain. Whatever came her way, she had the strength of her community behind her. And together, there was nothing they couldn't rise above. If Sarah's story inspired you, remember that every one of us has the power to make a difference in our communities. Share this video to spread the message of hope and resilience. And don't forget to check out our other stories of everyday heroes changing the world, one small act at a time.